Hi, welcome. In this video, I'd like to discuss the issue of accommodation. Okay, how it is that, as a dog begins to gain control in the relationship, how it is that people will interact in certain ways or use certain tools which follow the path of a dog that continues to gain fulfillment that way, to maintain a level of control, hold a level of control based on a desire to want to try to calm the waters, and which is totally understandable. This is common. That's why you'll see people using body harnesses, because again, I had a situation the other day where individuals showed up with help for their dog, and the dog was already on a body harness, and the reason that the owner explaining the situation, which is again is very common, was that as the dog as behavior, as the owner started to experience more and more behavioral issues over being food possessive, certain things, and then including even the walk, okay, where the dog began to not like being walked beside the owner a certain way, and even with the collar, that the dog would begin to gag and choke on the collar, and the owner thinking that something's wrong, is they start using a body harness and letting the dog kind of start to walk out in front, which, through accommodating the dog that way, it seems somewhat better, but clearly obviously not that better, because that's why they were coming to see me, because things had hit a tipping point. But all to say that it's very common and typical for people to try to find a way to resolve things or calm the waters by interacting certain ways that are going to allow a dog to gain comfort through that. But again, when I talk about the issue about control, even in the context of behavioral issues, in terms of representing a dog's already gained control, and they're beginning to manifest themselves certain ways and impact the dog's decision-making process, is how that begins to spill out everywhere. But even in terms of housebreaking or taking a dog outside to the bathroom, you'll see people get to a level where the dog's like leading them all over the neighborhood, and it takes longer and longer and longer for the dog to go to the bathroom, based on the fact of the dog is gaining control. So there's a duality happening. Okay, you're trying to get the dog to go to the bathroom, but they're also gaining control, so they don't have a healthy way of thinking to begin with, and so the mind is starting to really move out, and it just really impacts everything in the relationship. So the thing to understand is, and again, I always take this to the selfish child example, because to help people understand, it'd be no different than accommodating a selfish child who's starting to act out, and say if you're in the local Walmart, and just to get out of there, feeling like you want to get out of there without a temper tantrum and embarrassment, is you're making promises, you're negotiating as a parent to allow or to appease the child in such a way that it's going to calm the water, so that you can go or leave certain situations without some sort of a meltdown. But what you're doing at the same time, understand, is you're negotiating your your role as a parent. Ultimately, you're advocating, because you're adopting a parenting style which is not ultimately not healthy for the relationship, and everything is again going to move in a certain direction where eventually you're going to need some sort of an intervention, because everything always heads that way. I mean, all the dominoes kind of follow that way. So all to say that when things begin to happen and you're doing certain things, understand the real issue is the issue you have a relationship problem, and the issue about control. Everything has to be reversed. It's no different than, again, having a child, and if you leave the child in the bed too long and don't get them out into their own crib, is that it just becomes more difficult. Okay, the screaming is going to get more severe at that moment that you decide to do it, and then the tendency is for people to wait longer and longer and longer, and it becomes very dysfunctional, because it actually impacts the relationship you have with your spouse in a negative way, because it's you're not following the proper order of things. Okay, it's not about it's really about advocating so that you have healthy relationships. And so here, this is no different. Is advocating, understanding that the real issue is about control It's about relationship. Dogs are social animals. And so what you have to do is, just like I helped this gentleman, was to actually focus in on, okay, getting the dog to come into agreement, okay, with the type of interactions that we're actually going to resolve the relationship and going to get the dog to release control so that, again, you can get back to normalcy, okay? So again, I just want to put out there, when you look at things to do with accommodation, it might seem to make sense, or it might allow you to escape or get through certain things, but understand that it doesn't ultimately fix anything. It's just all you're doing is delaying what needs to happen. Okay, you're just kind of kicking the can down the road a little bit, and just you're going to create a bigger problem, because it's going to escalate. Because as you do that, and just like in this situation, you're going to need professional help, because things are going to manifest. It's going to get worse and worse and worse before you just say there's definitely something wrong here. Just like this dog was choking on the collar, we assume that it must be something that we're doing wrong, because we're not reconciling the reaction of the dog properly, because it becomes physiological. Okay, there's stress on the dog's mind is having certain reaction, and so we assume that, okay, I must be hurting the dog. Not that at all. You have to reconcile the context of the interaction based on the level of control a dog is holding, to understand where you're standing in the relationship. And then again, moving beyond that, understanding why it's really important to, reverse it by advocating things the right way. And even when I'm doing that for dogs holding a certain level of control, I will accommodate the dog in such a way as to not create certain responses, but everything's still moving in the right direction. Ultimately, the dog's going to release control. So again, I understand that there's a right way to do it. There's a process that is going to resolve the situation, but it's understanding that accommodation only delays what needs to happen in the first place. So thanks for watching.